Welcome back to the Marketing as Missions podcast. I'm Mandy.
And I'm Jeff.
And today we're going to be talking about
communication in marriage. And yes, that was intentionally awkward because sometimes this conversation gets a little awkward. It's a little uneasy.
Which is what Jeff thrives off of.
And I love it. Because if you can't make it right, you make it awkward. That's been my motto since, college. And it usually works out. There are some times where it does not work out and it's not good. Comment below some stories. But yeah, for the most part, marriage and communication is obviously a big deal.
Yep.
Marriage in any relationship. Communication in any relationship is absolutely vital. And we've seen this in our own relationship. We've seen this in the community group that we're in now, being in a group with a bunch of young marrieds with younger kids type of thing where, it's hilarious. Almost every Sunday we all get together and share some humorous story about one of us forgetting something that we talked about, or, how our kids are just like the other spouse because they forget everything.
Or leave things all over the house.
Well, we weren't going to cover that. But no, we wanted to talk a little bit about how Mandy and I communicate in our marriage. Not that we are the gold standard at all, because we still do have our little skiffs and kerscuffles occasionally.
Nice word.
Thank you. It's about communication. I'm on my game today.
Ooh, I'm not on your level.
But no, I just wanted to share a little bit about how we handle some things. And yes, conflict's a part of that, but also just like the boring stuff. How do you talk about what's coming up in your family? How do you talk about what you want for dinner? How do you talk about how you think your mom's sugar cookies are still better than your wife's? I don't think we're going to get into that. Don't get into that. That's a mess up. Okay. I set you up for that one.
You set yourself up for that one.
But
you want me to hand you a shovel? You can start digging.
That is what I'm really good at, actually.
You've
seen the movie Holes, right?
Yeah, I think you digged half of them.
Yep, I do. So we're also going to find out in this conversation who gets themselves in trouble the most in our communication within our marriage.
And I think you can already tell.
I was going to say, I don't think it's going to be that hard to find out. But this one's going to be a little bit more laid back. It's going to be funny. We're going to try not to blow the new mics out with some laughter. And have a good time with it. So, Mandy.
Yes.
When it comes to communication, especially within a marriage.
Yep.
What is the one thing that you think just gets either misunderstood or overlooked that is so vital to just understanding the other side of the story?
Tone and inflection and text.
Oh.
So a lot of times when you and I are texting.
Yes.
We can get very confused because you'll say something in a sarcastic tone via text. And I'll read it thinking, oh no, he's actually mad. Or I'll read it going, he doesn't care. And so that's a big one. Mm-hmm. Especially when we're texting and I'll just say, we need to talk in person or something like that because I can't figure it out. Or when we're like working in the kitchen, trying to get dinner done, and I say something to you and you're like, well, she's just really snooty and like acting really cross right now. And I'm like, no, I'm just hungry and I'm trying to get this done. Like, I'm not mad at you. I'm not like upset with you. Yep. But sometimes our tone, even though what you might be saying is true, is fine, is not, coming at you.
Yep.
But my tone makes you feel like I'm coming at you for something. Or via text, it can be messed up.
Yeah, and I would think, at least verbally speaking, and we'll get to the text, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that's huge. But verbally speaking, we both struggle with tone and inflection. With it, goes back to that old saying that we were taught when we were kids. It's not exactly what you say, it's also how you say it. And both of us, when we take ourselves down to our bare personalities, we're both no nonsense.
Yeah.
We have an ability to cut through a lot of the junk, to see through a lot of stuff, and just go, what's actually the problem here? Mm-hmm. And if we don't have that ability, we usually have the guts to say, either to each other or to another person, that exact question.
I can't tell you how many times I've looked at you and saying, what is going on?
Yeah. And in my head,
or,
I'm like,
why are you talking like this? And that's usually when we have our little, what is it? Skirkuffle?
I don't even know if I can say it again.
I don't know. When we have our little tiffs, we'll call it that. Because I'll look at you and be like, what is going on? And you're like, I need 10 minutes. And that's hard for me.
It is.
Because I just want to hash it out. Then I want to get it done. I want to be over it. And you're like, I will be a much better person in 10 minutes and be able to talk to you. But if you talk to me right now,
if we hash it out and get it done in 10 minutes right now, nothing's going to survive. But we just realized, I mean, honestly, we just realized that about each other, like in a very concrete way, within the last 6 months.
Yep.
We've been married. This is like almost 10 years we've been married now.
Yep.
And we really just, in our heads, concretely realized, oh, Mandy would prefer to just right then, right now, get it all out on the table, sort through it all, figure it out, find the direction we need to go, and then go that direction. And I'm definitely more of that quiet internal processor of, this is what I'm feeling. I don't know how I'm feeling. I need to figure out what I'm feeling first before I even, and my ADHD just goes crazy after that, and anxiety and everything else. But,
well, and I think it's funny because you're trying to internally process, and I'm going, just talk to me because I can help you process, because I'm a processor when I talk out loud and blah, blah, blah.
The hardest thing for me in that, I've realized, is that I'm a verbal processor. So on all of my personality charts, on all of these like personality exams I've taken, I'm technically an extrovert, but it's because I enjoy talking so much.
No.
What? I know. And so I always got in trouble for always just talking and saying what I was thinking. And sometimes that wasn't always the most like appropriate thing to say at that time. Mm-hmm. And really there were times where I didn't know what I had said was bad or inappropriate, or and inappropriate in the sense of like it just didn't fit the context well, right? And then I go back and that should never have left my mouth in that context. But at that time, I was just like thinking through what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But it was coming out of my mouth.
That also got you in trouble.
Trouble, yeah.
In our early years of marriage.
Very much so.
Because Jeff and I would have a conversation about, it could be anything, like going to visit his parents. Mm-hmm. And then he would get on the phone and talk to his mom, and they'd be on speakerphone, so I could hear the whole thing. And he would say something completely different than what we had just talked about. Yep. And then he hangs up, and I'm like, okay, well, what is it? Because we said X, Y, and Z, and you just said A, B, and C, and that does not mesh. And he goes, I did? And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to be like, what do you mean?
And it's so funny how, and I think we're going to see this thread through this entire episode, but your personality obviously is a huge factor in how you communicate, right? And Mandy's personality is very specifically geared towards being precise.
Yes.
Not only does Mandy like details, all of Mandy's rows and columns have to add up perfectly for her to be entirely content and move on to the next thing. I like details and systems, but I could care less if everything added up at the end. I just want to, oh, cool, I made the system, we're good with the details, everything's fairly organized, move on to the next thing, let somebody else worry about the fallout. That's just who we are. And
you would be like in a house, if we were moving and this was Jeffrey.
Oh, goodness.
He would be like, okay, yep, that goes in the living room, and he would just leave the box there. And I would be the person that goes, oh, that's in the living room, but this needs to go on the bookshelf, and this needs to go in the chest, and this needs to go on the blanket ladder. And you'd be like, well, it was in the living room. It's where it's supposed to go.
And she's right when the first thing I want to say is, yeah, so. That's just who we are, right?
Yeah.
And there are strong suits. There are multiple times where you have admitted to me that you are glad that I was wired that way because you would have thought way too much about it, or you would have struggled with something about a situation that my personality was just able to kind of work on it, get through it, and move on. Mm-hmm. And there are multiple opportunities where I've done the same thing, and I've come to you and I'm like, I'm so glad they asked you that question, because I would have totally glossed over the little things that you caught, that then you were able to slow them down and think through certain situations, certain aspects. And I was like, just in sheer amazement of like how you were able to process it. And it was just because you took the time to notice the smaller things.
Yeah.
So in all of that, I think going back to the more normal point that we were trying to make is we struggle with communication, especially verbally, but we're getting a lot better at it.
Well, and I think struggle with communication can be different for each person.
Yeah.
Because thinking through of some of our friends, I think they would say that we are excellent at communication, whereas we see ourselves as needing help in communication a lot. But I think it's because we do communicate so much that now we need to like over communicate to each other, because now we're at the point where we can kind of see where each other is going, but we need to make sure that we're not like 5 steps ahead and you be like only 3 steps ahead. So then we have to figure out where we're connecting.
Which I think is a very good point, because we get there a lot where you're like, slow down. I'm here, you're there. What happened in the middle?
We're on the same track, but you're going north and I'm going south. So what happened?
Or what's my phrase that I use? Oh, we're on the same track, just different rails.
Yeah. Which doesn't fully make sense, but
it's just because you had a father that was very into trains and you know how they work. And I was just like, we're going the same direction parallel. I'm just faster.
It's okay.
I also really enjoy stirring the pot.
Yes, he does. Which is something that I have kind of gotten used to and I just kind of blow off now.
It's true.
Like, whatever.
But now she's come to the point where she actually like tends to stir the pot herself a little bit occasionally, as long as she knows it actually isn't going to cause real conflict.
With you.
With me. And I that's like one of the most joyous moments of my life.
Only one that I would ever stir up conflict with, because I absolutely hate, despise, will never try to induce conflict. I hate it. I hate it. I am the person that will not go up and tell someone that my food was made wrong at a restaurant because I hate to, no.
And I'm the one that can't wait to get something wrong on my plate so that I can talk to the waitress or waiter and be like, this was totally not wrong or not right. And
this was totally not wrong, so please make it again.
Yeah, please make it again and give it to me for free. Take it off the bill. No, but since you brought it up, conflict in communication. This is where a lot of people that we've talked to in the past, and ourselves included, have struggled greatly in their communication, whether it's their marriage or just relationships in general. But that's the area of conflict, when one side believes or thinks one way is the right way, and the other side either completely doesn't believe that or just has some questions about if it's actually the right way to go. So how have we handled conflict in the past?
Well, I've had to Google a lot. And you've gotten mad at me a few times for Googling to see if I'm right or you're right.
We do tend to. Yeah, that's one of the things that we consistently fail at, is in our premarital counseling, we had one of our advisors tell us never to keep score in our relationship. And I don't know if we ever like have a scoreboard.
No.
But our Google results definitely show that we have a game plan.
I do remember there was one time where I was looking something up completely different from what we had talked about. And you were like fuming on the inside. Like, she's looking this up because she knows that she's right and I'm wrong. And blah, blah, blah. And we get home and I look at you and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why? And you're like, I know you were looking that up. I was like, I was not. I was looking up blah, 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 blah. And you were like, oh, I'm sorry.
The whole, like, assume thing, yeah, that was me. And usually is frequently. But yeah, I think, for the most part, we have a unique way, though, of breaking down, like, big conflicts. Like, okay. Big decisions, conflicts of, like, what we should do with the kids. Like, the other night, for example, we were talking, we've been sick a lot lately, right? And so one of our kids had another runny nose, and we're like, oh, man, like, are we going to go through another sickness? And Mandy's mommy senses started to kick in and wanted to, not maybe talk about having Kinley not go to church or different events and stuff like that. And this was one of those times where I realized that my personality in that moment was going to be, if I just let it flow naturally, it was going to be way too much, right? Mm-hmm. It would have been overbearing. You would have felt not listened to. Mm-hmm. You would have felt like the senses that you were feeling weren't valuable in that moment. Yeah. And you would have felt shut down. And I had been pretty annoying that night, just like poking and pushing buttons and like messing around with the kids.
You're being goofy.
I was just being goofy, right? That's who I am. And so I sat down beside her and I said, Mandy, I said, I know I've been annoying and goofy tonight, but I want you to hear this. And then I just laid out calmly and as well thought out as I could in that moment, being a verbal thinker, my thought process on where we should go with it.
And then you asked my opinion, mm-hmm. and I laid out what I was thinking. And then from that, we basically figured out what we were going to do. Yep. But after hearing both sides, yep. and making sure that we weren't making a decision based on how we thought other people would perceive us, mm-hmm. but making a decision based off of the actual facts of what is going on with our child. Yep. And, at that point, it's like, okay, well, because of X, Y, and Z, she might be getting sick, but P, Q, and R, she might not be getting sick, and it could just literally be allergies because everything is blooming right now. Yep. And so we just kind of weighed our options and looked through what was going on. And, okay, is she running a fever? Is she whatever? Yep. And
made our decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one real life example, right, of how we kind of handle that. Now, we've had many opportunities and times where we've completely not done great in that, but honestly, I can't remember.
If we have any big decision that we need to...
We are big pros and cons on whiteboard people.
Yes. Like, we have to have a whiteboard. I feel like whenever we have our own house again, we'll probably have like a whiteboard wall.
Whiteboard wall is in my dream house.
Because we use the whiteboards all the time. We have a whiteboard calendar that's on our fridge. We have a whiteboard that's in our kitchen that we use. We have, we use them constantly to just brainstorm and
mind map ideas, mm-hmm. things. And Mandy's a very visual learner, and I learned that very quickly. I'm very much a hear it once, try it, and then figure it out, which is very frustrating because I want to be a visual learner. But like when I put together a Lego set, I look at the end result and I was like, oh yeah, I'll just try to do that. I don't actually follow like the visual step by step.
And Mandy's like, give me the step by step and I will get it done like that.
So having a whiteboard helps us color code things. I'm very much like black ink, blue ink, doesn't matter, don't care. And Mandy's like, no, this category can be green and blue, and in her head, and everything's like organized in her own little way. And then when she does it, I was like, oh, that makes like a lot of sense. Like, it's actually a lot easier for me to understand. So kudos to you. But that's the kind of thing that's incredibly important for us, is recognizing how we individually solve problems
Yeah.
isn't going to get the job done as easy as possible together.
Right. Well, and Jeff is a big technology person. If he could do something on a computer or an iPad, he loves that. And I was trying to put myself into that. But I got to the point where when I'm having to make a list, or if I'm trying to like plan out what we're going to be wearing or whatever, I need to see it on paper in front of me. And I don't know why a screen and a paper are different, because like with our iPad, I could write it out, but it's still different. Mm-hmm. And so I've actually had to go old school and get a planner, and I have a calendar that's a paper calendar, and I have like notebooks all over the house that we have to find because I need to write things down.
Yep.
And that's one of my quirks, I guess.
Well, and I love that though, because you know where everything's at. You might lose the notebook, or the kids might think that notebook is their drawing tablet for the day.
Yeah, I think Kinley stole one of them, and it's in the back of the car.
I've always wanted to be old school, and I'm trying to like, I'm in my own little journey, and that's probably another random YouTube video down the road of like, what should I be? Should I be all tech? Should I be a hybrid of tech and paper? Both work, but I'm also like incredibly ADD about certain things, and so I'll have like this obsession over an app. Like 2 weeks ago, it was the Notion app, and I was like, yeah, I'm all in Notion. Everything's gonna go away. And then I saw a YouTube video about how somebody's using Apple Notes, which is completely free on all your devices, and like syncs to all the Apple ecosystem. And I was like, oh, I can do almost everything Notion can. It just doesn't have artificial intelligence, but I have other ways to get that. So I'll just go all Apple Notes and reminders. And next week I'll probably love Evernote again.
Yeah. I will say, as old school as I am about needing to write down lists and papers and things, if it is not on my phone calendar, it doesn't exist. And that kind of happened because today is not a normal day for our child to have OT.
No.
But they had to reschedule. And I didn't write it down, and I didn't put it in my calendar. And so we went, oh no, he has OT today, but we don't know what time.
Oh boy.
So I had to call it like 8 a.m. Hello, what time does my child have OT today?
Thankfully, we remembered that at like Saturday at 4.
Yeah.
And we put it on the calendar as a reminder for 8 a.m. this morning to do that.
Because if it wasn't, it would be dead to me.
That's actually what we call in the Keller Williams world a bold law. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. And I was so thankful for my time within the Keller Williams ecosystem, because there were so many of those like little core principles that you learned in life that you always knew from a communication standpoint, from a relational aspect, from a leadership principle aspect, but then they just kind of put this like neat phrase or just this blunt phrase to it, and it's like, oh yeah, if it's not on my calendar, it won't exist because I'm going to forget it. And the busier that we get, the more that is true.
Which is also why I hound you that whenever we get a meeting or a possible meeting, I'm like, put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar.
Yep. And honestly, I find that super annoying, but it's effective. Because if I'm in the zone type of guy, do not distract me. Like, if you want to boil my blood, distract me while I'm doing something that I feel is important. And I don't like that at all. Ask my children. That's one of the main times I'm a very weak father. But when Mandy texts me those things, and I was like, oh, I know, just be quiet, hold on, I'll get to it. And it's like, no, Jeff, you're a ding dong. You won't get to it. Add it on the calendar. Make it a part of your process. That if you schedule a meeting with a church or a pastor, that you just, the next step before you go on to the next phone call is you put it in your calendar. Like, a lot of it's just common sense. And that's what I appreciate about Mandy, even though it's a hard reflection on my life, is that you are just very common sense.
Yep.
And I value that. And I like to think of myself as a common sense person, but I'm also like a 3 steps ahead type of person. And so I might do some really good things, but I'm going to forget a lot of how I got there. And I'm not going to be able to repeat it on a regular basis. And you help me with that.
Which is also why he gets lost a lot.
I'm terrible with directions, but that's another podcast.
So here's another
I think we got off conflict a little bit, but
avenue that we could go down is, how do you think we handle accountability?
Accountability, such a buzzword. I think we handle accountability in the sense of, and we're talking about in the sense of, I say I'm going to do something. Mandy holds me accountable to that. If Mandy says she's going to do something, I'm holding her accountable to that.
But this is a big thing with us.
Yep.
Because Jeffrey...
I am very much not let my yeses be yes and my noes be no. I'm usually let my noes be yeses and my yeses be noes because I forget what I said.
Yep.
And anybody that's ever had me as an employee, as a friend, or on their leadership team, they're now either rolling their eyes or laughing because they understand. And you get to live with it on a daily basis.
I do.
So one of the main things, and again, this was just within the last year that we've learned, is...
What do I ask you, Jeffrey?
What do you ask me? I'm trying to remember the exact words. Did you forget or did you get distracted?
Yep.
So before she asked me that question, it was along the lines of either sarcastically or even sadistically asking, oh, did you forget this time too? Or, oh, let me guess, you probably didn't do this, did you? Or she'd walk into the kitchen, walk back out and go, the dishes aren't done and it's bedtime. And I'd be like, ouch. But you're right. Okay. But like how she was saying it probably wasn't the coolest, but it would get my attention and get me into action. And I would remember that I was supposed to go do something.
Well, and most of the time with these predicaments was Jeff would say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
Or I'm going to get you something. Or I'm going to blah, 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 blah. So the expectation at that point was he knows what I'm doing. He said he's going to blah, blah, blah. And when I come out or finish what I'm doing and he doesn't have that done. I have
not followed through.
That is when I have to ask, did you forget or did you get distracted?
Yeah. And most of the time.
One example would be, Jeff, I'm going to go take a shower. And Jeff says, okay, I'm going to bring you a drink so that you can have a drink after your shower. I'm like, great. That sounds awesome. I take my shower. I get dressed. I do my hair. I do all these things. And I have no drink, which is fine. I don't need a drink, and I just come out. I might go get a drink and then I'll come to him and be like, so, did you forget or did you get distracted? And he'll go,
oh crap.
What did I do? What did I not do?
Mm-hmm. And then she'll hold up her drink and I'd be like,
oh, right.
Yeah, I got distracted. And then I usually go into like some story to like just, well, but this bill's paid and I got a really good deal and I really want you to look at this TikTok.
And I'm like,
and they're all, none of them are necessarily like usually overly goofy. I usually have a very good means to the end that I didn't follow through on, but it is definitely not what I promised. So in this case, like she's not expecting grand things over and above what I already am or what I'm capable of. I've already set that expectation. Hey, I want to be nice to you. I want to serve you. I will bring this. Or she'll say, I would like a snack. And then I'll verbally, out loud, which is what verbally means, right? Say, I'll go get it for you. And then 5 minutes later, she'll just smile and say, I'm still hungry. Because I never got up and got it.
Or my favorite is when you get up and you go you get distracted while you're up doing, like, you're supposed to be going and getting a snack or something. And you get distracted on the way there, and you come back 5 minutes later, I think with your own snack.
Usually it's...
And you sit down, and I go, I guess I have to go get my own.
And if I've truly, like, really, really forgot, that's when it's like, well, yeah, get your own snack. Like, I just got my own snack. And then she'll, like, look at me and be like, are you really that dumb right now?
I don't...
You look at me like, you don't say it.
Yeah.
You don't say it.
I don't usually say that. I might look at you like that.
No, you might look at me like that. You don't say that. You're a nice person for the most part.
Occasionally intrusive thoughts come out, but...
I think we both struggle with intrusive thoughts. Maybe that's another podcast episode. Ooh. So, one of the things that in communication that we try to keep strong in is our relationship, right? Yes. And this can work in a marriage. It can also work in just a friendship. Maybe it's also like a parent or kid relationship as well. But a lot of us are familiar with the 5 love languages. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much a words of affirmation person, very much a quality time person. Everything else I really could care less about.
Yep.
Honestly.
For you. Yeah.
For me. Mandy loves receiving gifts.
I do.
Mandy also enjoys her head rubbed or her back scratched, her shoulders rubbed, and she greatly appreciates quality time that she gets to choose what the activity is. Yeah. Like, you like doing activities. Yeah. You like card games, board games, going out and playing putt-putt. My quality time is this.
Your quality time is, let's sit down and watch TikToks together.
Let's sit and watch TikTok together and not say a word. Or let's watch a new show. Or let's watch highlights of Ben Roethlisberger for the 5th time. Things like that.
If you were not viewing that, I just rolled my eyes.
Yeah.
Like,
I might cut that
heavily.
out later. No, so one of the best ways that we can practice being good communicators with each other is practicing showing love to the other person that deliberately and specifically fills their love tank up and doesn't do a thing for ours, right? Like, I really, if you scratch my head or rub my shoulders, it'll feel good. I like it, but I'm like, I don't walk away from that moment going, oh, I feel so immaculately loved right now. Thank you so much. But
if I sit down and make you look at me in the eyes and I say, Jeffrey, I'm so proud of what you've done today, and you've been a great father and a great husband, and I love how you handled this situation, that will make him feel loved.
Yes, I will feel like Superman after that. Really will. And that does nothing for you.
I like nice words, but it doesn't make me feel loved.
But like, even saying those words.
Well,
like, when you're tired, the last thing that you want to do
is think.
And talk. Like, that's just how you're built, right?
Well, I do talk when I'm sleepy.
That's a different subject.
But I usually just say whatever is going through my mind, which is usually our calendar.
You don't want to be intentional about your words.
Correct.
When you are exhausted.
I just want to get things off my mind.
And you've had a full day of momming. You want to get things off your mind, move to the next thing, which is usually, when can I fall asleep? At the end of the day. And so the idea is, it takes work on your end to provide love in some way, to connect with them in a loving way, somehow, some way, that fills them up. Mm-hmm. It makes them feel good. And it doesn't necessarily immediately reward you. So we just try to connect on an everyday level in some way that we make sure to try to do something to make the other person feel loved. Because in communication, what's the number one rule in communication? Is it talking or listening?
Listen.
It's listening. And you can't listen if you don't feel loved. That's one of the rules that I learned very early on when I studied some counseling and some psychology and mixed that with my walk with Jesus and tried to understand people at a deeper level, is that you genuinely can't listen as well as you need to if you don't feel loved. And if I had one piece of advice for this entire episode, it's that. It's that no matter what your relationship is, whether it's a kid and a mom, or a husband and a wife, or just two best friends that have been disconnected for some time, listen. Do something that will show the other person love. True self-sacrificing love. And I mean, that's very 1 Corinthians 13, right?
Yeah. I think the other part of that is when someone is not, when someone's being talked at, they feel like they have to put up their defensive walls. Mm-hmm. And so they're also not listening.
Yep.
So instead of talking at someone, instead of accusing someone, you walk through and say, this is what I'm observing. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, that goes back to what we were taught in college with OIC, right? You can observe what's happening and you can interpret it 3 different ways. And usually you can interpret it 2 negative ways, but always interpret it in a positive way as well, just in case you're wrong and they're not. And then you can conclude, well, if you're interpreting it this way, I can conclude that you don't like me or that you're very upset with me in this moment. And it's a good way to have a conversation that diffuses the situation, that calms everything down, while at the same time still getting to the truth of the matter. And that was a very high level view of that. And I'm not necessarily the teacher of that particular conversational structure, but I nerd out on stuff like that at the same time.
And I think that's very important, especially with communication in marriage, is that you're not attacking someone with your words, but you're expressing what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and asking for clarity on what's going on. Because if I say, you're doing X, Y, and Z, you're automatically going, whoop, nope. And I'm not gonna address that because, I'm feeling defensive and that's not cool.
In communication, clarity controls everything.
Yeah.
Hands down. I don't care if you're figuring out what you need to do to solve all of the world's issues, or if you're figuring out what you need to have for dinner that night. Clarity controls everything in that communication cycle.
I think there's multiple times when we're just discussing anything that I'll say, can you say that again? Mm-hmm. Or, was this what you said? Yeah.
Oh, that is so huge too, is being able to repeat what the other person said, or I think, or this is how I think you said what you said, or this is what I heard. And then repeat what you think they said. And if you get something completely different, it is one of the weirdest feelings in all of the world.
Really?
You got that out of that? Okay.
You thought I said what?
But that's when you go, oh, how long have I been communicating like this where I'm not aware of how I'm communicating? Mm-hmm. And I think what's weird about this conversation so far in communication is we've focused a lot on the intangibles of how we say the thing. We haven't even really dove into content of how to just not be a mean person and don't say dumb things. But that's how important this part of communication is. It's the unspoken, we're going back to tone and inflection now, how you communicate what you communicate. And man, if you struggle with not just talking, but communicating in general with somebody that you love, please start learning about how to listen.
Hmm.
Pick up a book about listening. I know that sounds weird, it sounds nerdy, but if you truly struggle with listening or communicating, you need to learn how to do that, because it's going to better you, your relationships, your situation, and it's going to make everybody else around you a much better person. Plus, they'll probably like you better too.
It's a fair point. So, when we were going through a rough time in our lives, transitions, anxiety, depression, etc., we started praying together every night before we would go to sleep. And I feel like a lot of times it was me going, hey, let's pray.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'll own up to that, because I never was a pray at night before bed type of person. Like, I was always when I do my devotions or when I have a quiet moment, that's when I enjoyed a lot of my rich prayer time. And on top of that, I am the kind of person that when my head hits the pillow, like, it's nighttime. Like, I want to be asleep as fast as possible. And I think, I've struggled with like pillow talk, and like Mandy's brain finally shuts down at the end of the day, and she's just like da 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 da, and I'm like, it's sleepy time. Let's go to bed.
I think that's one of the things you not hate about me, but despise maybe, is that I have to just get everything out.
Yep.
And
it's like her confession at the end of the day.
It's weird though,
I
because
definitely wonder why I feel like I'm the priest, but
you've tried to say, okay, Mandy, let's sit down on the couch like 30 minutes before bed and let's hash it, like, get everything
all
out,
out
whatever.
there.
And I can't do it.
You can't. You legitimately cannot.
Can't. I have to do it when I'm in bed. I have to just.
Yep. And so then after she does that, then she's like, "Hey, we should pray." And I'm like, I love Jesus. I do. I love you. I do. I want to go to sleep. I'm just tired. And so then you feel bad because you're giving a half-done prayer and a half-done relationship to end the night. But it is what it is. But we have decided in multiple things where we'll renew that practice a little bit more strictly, where it's like, no, we need to pray tonight, either before we go to bed or in bed before we go to sleep, and just refocus our hearts. And especially when we went through some anxiety, depression, panic attacks, different things like that for both of us. One of those things that was very clear to us is that God has us. He's going to do everything for his glory and our good. How do we set our minds at ease and truly trust and believe in that before we lay our heads down at night to rest? And I think one of the most impactful works, other than the Bible, that I read in college was John Piper's little essay on, it's called In the Quest of Rest. And it was almost like a deep dive on theology of sleep, which is really cool. And I geek out about that kind of stuff. And I studied sleep like as one of my papers in college. I love studying sleep. It's weird. Anyway, maybe that's why I'm so like, I hit the pillow and I got to go to sleep. But it was, you have to be so at rest with God, and you have to trust God at such a deep level to be able to shut your eyes every night and trust him that you have the potential to wake up in the morning. And when we were going through our deepest struggles, or, a really tough day or patch of days, it was really tough to unplug, unwind, and say, God, you have to have this because we don't know how to do it any other way. We can't control the next step. We can't control the person in the situation. Whatever the plea was for, it was us completely having to let go of the situation and put it into God's hands. And in only that way were our souls really able to truly rest and sleep. And that was so vital in our communication the next day.
Yeah.
Because then we'd wake up and we wouldn't be necessarily overly anxious or overly nervous at the start of the day. It would be not until that next night where the day's troubles and everything that would happen in the course of a day build up again, and then all of a sudden you just give it back to God. And it's just kind of this cycle. It's a very spiritual prayer cycle, right? Of a good, healthy, natural prayer life is things build up. And if you're able to, in those moments, give as much as you can to God. Pause and give it to God. But if you're not able because something in your body or anxiety and depression is gripping you, or you have to do something in the next step, definitely take that time at the end of the night before you go to bed, especially with your loved one, and give it to God. Just hand it over to Him.
Yeah.
So, I have a question for you.
Oh boy.
This is going to be out of left field a little bit, but we'll kind of land the plane with this one.
Okay.
If you were to rate our communication on a scale of 1 to 10, almost 10 years into marriage, what would it be?
I would say 7. I feel like we do very well. I think there's a lot of room for improvement still. And I think deputation and missionary life has kind of
That's opened
increased the need for communication.
Yep.
And again, I think we do really, really well with trying to keep each other up to date with what's going on, who's where, what are we doing when. But we have a lot to keep track of and a lot to work through, or things will get dropped.
Yep.
And so, again, we have room for improvement, but when I think through all the things that have to get done, I'm like,
I think we naturally do a really good job. I would say 7 as well, 7 or 8. I think we're at a good point right now.
Yeah.
We've been tested in the last 6 months where it would probably have been lower, probably right before the holidays, things like that, where it was just like you and I were talking to each other and it was just like I was talking to your forehead.
Yeah.
And you felt the same way about talking to me, kind of thing. And it wasn't anything we were doing wrong. It was just we were exhausted and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And different things that we didn't see at that time. But I think with the amount of things that we have to get done, and again, a lot of other people do a lot more things than we do. But for right now, where we're at, God has allowed us to manage this very well within our skill set.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you've taken control of the things that you know you're good at, and you've done that with a joy in your heart. And I feel like God has allowed me to do very much the same thing. And there's a lot of crossover that we have in that, where we both enjoy searching for travel deals. We both enjoy searching for the best way to do something. And so that just naturally causes really good conversation when we're packing a family of 4 to travel the entire East Coast by plane and by automobile, and hopefully not by train.
Yeah. But, well, I think when it comes down to packing, you're like, I got me, goodbye.
Mandy's got it. She's got her packing cubes. I'll do my own clothes to make sure. And even then, I'll still be like, oh, what dress shirt should I wear? This one? Should I wear a tie? Should I not?
Can you put my packing cubes together?
But at the same time, while you're doing that and you're having the natural good stress that comes with making sure all of that is right, I'm thinking through, and I feel like until we're starting to pack the car, you don't necessarily think about, do we have the computer? Do we have the presentation?
Well, I do. You're just more of the working on a message, making sure that the PowerPoint's where it's supposed to be.
Do we have the charging cords?
Yeah.
I'm usually the tech bag guy.
Yes, I do usually leave that to you, but it is on my list to make sure that we have.
You have kindness and accountability when it comes to me remembering that, but for the most part, and could we live without the technology? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I like thinking that that's my little pride and joy and I can do that? It makes me feel special. And Mandy's really good at packing cubes, so, it works out. But, cool. I hope this was an encouragement.
Sorry.
To you guys. That's one of those, awkward landing plane things.
Whoa. Cool.
Cool. Cool.
We should leave that in.
We should.
Thanks for hanging with us. If you made it this long, you're a trooper.
You are awesome. You should totally subscribe if you made it this long.
Comment down below what your favorite color is and a topic that you want us to talk about. Do it.
And if you've listened this long, we will listen to you. Bye.
Bye.